Over the past 50 years, I've had the privilege of teaching, writing, and speaking about personal success and human potential to millions of people around the world. One question I hear more than almost any other is, Brian, how do I eliminate fear from my life? And it's a fair question. Fear is one of the most common obstacles standing between people and the life they truly want. It shows up in many forms: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of uncertainty, even fear of success. It's an invisible force that can shape our actions, decisions, and ultimately our destiny. And unless we learn how to understand and manage fear, it will quietly control the direction of our lives, often without us even realizing it. Fear, in its essence, is a natural emotion. It's part of our evolutionary survival system. When we sense danger, real or perceived, our brain activates a response to protect us. In certain circumstances, this is not only helpful, but essential. If you're walking along a mountain trail and suddenly see a bear, the adrenaline that surges through you and tells you to run or freeze is fear doing exactly what it's designed to do. That kind of fear serves us. But then there's another kind, the kind that paralyzes rather than protects. It's the fear that whispers, don't speak up, you might embarrass yourself. Or don't start that business, you might fail. It's subtle, persistent, and incredibly destructive when left unchecked. This is the fear we must understand and ultimately master if we want to grow. I remember a time early in my career when fear was a constant companion. I was working a stable job at a large corporation. The pay was decent, the hours were predictable, and I had benefits, what many would call security. But I knew deep down that I wasn't living my purpose. I had a dream to speak, to write, to inspire others to reach their potential. The idea of leaving the safety of that job terrified me. I wrestled with it for months. Fear told me I wasn't ready. Fear told me I'd fail. Fear told me I'd be broke and regretful. But something else inside me, a voice just as real, kept saying, you were made for more. And eventually, I listened to that voice. I took the leap. And yes, it was hard at first, but that single decision to step through fear rather than run from it changed the entire course of my life. In this journey we're about to embark on together, I'm going to walk you through how fear works, where it comes from, and how you can take control of it once and for all. Not by pretending it doesn't exist, but by learning to use it as a guide rather than a governor. Because here's what I've learned. The most successful people in the world aren't fearless. They simply act in spite of their fear, and so can you. Fear, when properly understood, reveals itself as a tool, a message from our mind and body. It has two very different faces. On one side, it is protective. It alerts us to danger, keeps us safe, and prevents us from making decisions that could cause harm. This is what I call useful fear. It's the signal that stops you from stepping off a curb when a car is speeding by. It's what helps you assess the risk before making a decision that could have long-term consequences. Protective fear is essential. It has a role in your survival and in your ability to make smart, thoughtful decisions. But on the other side, there is debilitating fear, the kind that stops us not from danger, but from progress. It doesn't protect us. It paralyzes us. It doesn't keep us safe. It keeps us small. This type of fear shows up when you're about to raise your hand in a meeting and share your idea, but you hesitate because you fear sounding foolish. It appears when you think about applying for a promotion or starting your own business, and a voice inside whispers, what if I fail? Debilitating fear doesn't come from actual threats. It comes from imagined consequences. It is rooted in the fear of embarrassment, rejection, or inadequacy. And unfortunately, this is the type of fear that most people experience every day without even realizing it. Let me give you two contrasting examples. Imagine you're hiking and hear a rustle in the bushes. Protective fear kicks in, your heart races, your senses heighten, and you're alert to a possible animal nearby. That's a good thing. That's your mind doing its job. But now picture this. You've been asked to give a 5-minute presentation at work. You know the material, you're capable. But your palms sweat, your throat tightens, and a voice in your head says, you can't do this. That's debilitating fear. It's not protecting you from danger. It's holding you back from growth. The key is learning to differentiate the two. Fear is not inherently bad. It's simply data. What you do with that data is what matters most. Successful people learn to pause, evaluate, and ask, is this fear here to protect me, or is it here to keep me stuck? When you begin to see fear, not as an enemy, but as a signal, either to proceed with caution or to push forward despite discomfort. You gain control. You reclaim power. You shift from being reactive to being intentional. And that, my friend, is the beginning of freedom. Fear, like most of our internal experiences, has a root. And if you want to overcome it, not just once, but for good, you must understand where it comes from. The first and most common source of fear is ignorance. When we don't know something, when the outcome is uncertain or the process is unclear, our minds fill in the blanks. And because the human brain is wired for survival, it rarely fills those blanks with optimism. Instead, we imagine the worst-case scenario. We project failure, embarrassment, or pain. The unknown becomes a threat, not because it actually is, but because we lack the information to see it clearly. Think about it. If someone asked you to give a speech in front of 500 people and you'd never done that before, your first reaction might be fear. Not because you're incapable, but because you don't know what to expect. You don't know how the audience will respond, how you'll perform under pressure, or what will happen if you stumble over your words. That uncertainty creates fear, but once you've done it a few times, the fear fades. Why? Because you replaced ignorance with experience. You replaced doubt with data. The second root of fear is our past, our conditioning. From childhood, we are shaped by the experiences we've had and the messages we've absorbed. If you were laughed at for asking a question in class, you might now fear speaking up in meetings. If a business venture failed in the past, you might fear starting again. These memories become associations in our subconscious. They whisper, "Remember what happened last time?" And suddenly, your body reacts, not to the present, but to a past that you've mistaken for your future. Conditioning is powerful, but it's not permanent. The good news is that what was learned can be unlearned. What was conditioned can be reconditioned. And that leads us to the third root cause of fear, limiting beliefs. These are the quiet assumptions we carry about ourselves, often without even realizing it. Beliefs like, "I'm not smart enough," "I'm not worthy of success," or "I always mess things up." These beliefs act as internal governors. They cap your confidence, restrict your action, and shrink your ambition. Limiting beliefs aren't facts. They're conclusions, often based on incomplete or outdated information. And yet, they dictate how we show up in life. The person who believes they're not good at math will avoid financial discussions. The person who believes they're bad with people will dodge networking events. And the tragedy is, these beliefs become self-fulfilling. You avoid the very actions that would disprove them. So here's the truth. Fear doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from within. It's not the speech, the interview, or the investment that creates fear. It's the story you tell yourself about what those things mean. If you want to eliminate fear, you must first change the narrative. Replace ignorance with learning. Replace conditioning with conscious action. Replace limiting beliefs with empowering ones. Because once you change the way you see yourself, fear no longer stands a chance. Fear, left unchecked, becomes more than just an uncomfortable emotion. It becomes a barrier between where you are and where you want to be. In my decades of working with professionals, entrepreneurs, and high achievers around the world, I've seen the pattern again and again. Fear creates paralysis, not in the physical sense, but in action. People who are fully capable, fully equipped, and full of potential will hesitate, or worse, do nothing, simply because they're afraid. They wait for the perfect time, for more clarity, for certainty. And in doing so, they miss opportunities that never return. That's what fear does. It talks you out of making the phone call. It tells you you're not ready for the promotion. It convinces you to stay in the wrong job, the wrong relationship, or the wrong city. And every time you listen to fear instead of courage, you reinforce the idea that it's keeping you safe, when in reality, it's keeping you stuck. But the damage goes even deeper. Chronic fear doesn't just delay decisions, it deteriorates your health. Studies in psychology and neuroscience have shown that persistent fear and anxiety activate your body's stress response. Your brain releases cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tighten, and over time, if that fear is never addressed, it can lead to burnout, insomnia, high blood pressure, and even immune system suppression. The body was never meant to live in a state of constant alert, but when fear becomes your norm, your health pays the price. And it's not just about missed goals or physical well-being. Fear also eats away at the quality of your relationships. When you're afraid to be vulnerable, you keep people at arm's length. When you fear rejection, you hold back from expressing what you really feel. And when fear runs the show, communication suffers. You don't speak up, You don't listen fully. You assume, you protect, you defend. And slowly the walls go up, at home, at work, even with the people you care about most. Fear tells you to play it safe, but what it doesn't tell you is that safety can come at the cost of connection, growth, and joy. A client once shared with me that he had avoided telling his spouse about a financial challenge at work for months, afraid it would cause stress. By the time he opened up, the problem had grown, and so had the distance between them. Not because of the issue, but because of the silence fear created. The truth is, we all experience fear. That's human. But when fear dictates your choices, it limits your life. And those limitations show up everywhere: in stalled careers, strained marriages, unrealized dreams, and unexplored potential. So, if you felt stuck, overwhelmed, or isolated, I invite you to ask one question: what fear is holding me back? Because once you name it, you can face it. And once you face it, you can begin to reclaim your freedom, not just in your work, but in your health, your relationships, and your life. Here's something I've learned over the years. Fear, in and of itself, is not your enemy. It only becomes your enemy when you misunderstand it. You see, fear isn't always a stop sign. In fact, in many cases, it's a signpost pointing directly toward your greatest opportunity for growth. When you learn to recognize fear, not as something to run from, but something to engage with, everything begins to change. I like to say this: fear is a signal. It's your inner intelligence alerting you that you're about to step outside your comfort zone. And here's the truth: everything you want, everything that will improve your life, lies just beyond that line. When you feel fear, instead of freezing, ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? What skill do I need to develop? What belief do I need to let go of? In that question, fear transforms from a wall into a doorway. Now, don't make the mistake of thinking you need to make a giant leap right away. You don't have to quit your job, move across the country, or start a business overnight. The key to transforming fear into power is to start small, set incremental challenges. If public speaking terrifies you, start by speaking up in a meeting. If launching your idea feels overwhelming, begin with a simple email to a mentor or a potential partner. These small steps begin to rewire your brain. They prove to you that fear is survivable, manageable, and most of all, conquerable. Every time you act in spite of fear, you earn something powerful: confidence. And confidence is not the absence of fear, it's the belief that you can move forward regardless of it. That's how momentum is built, step by step, action by action. Confidence is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And this brings me to one of the most underutilized habits in personal growth: celebration. When you take a courageous step, no matter how small, acknowledge it. Celebrate it. Don't wait until you've climbed the entire mountain to feel proud. Celebrate the first step, the first call, the first rejection that you bounce back from. These moments reinforce your self-image as someone who takes action in the face of fear. They anchor the belief that you are growing, and that belief becomes your new baseline for what's possible. Remember, fear is a part of the journey, not the end of it. It's not a stop sign, it's a starting line. Every successful person you admire has learned to work with fear, not avoid it, and you can do the same. Start with one challenge today, one moment of courage, one celebration, and watch as fear becomes fuel. Fuel for growth, fuel for progress, and fuel for the life you're meant to live. One of the fastest and most effective ways to eliminate fear is through continuous learning. You see, fear thrives in the unknown. When you don't understand something, your mind fills in the blanks, often with worst-case scenarios. But when you gain clarity, when you study, when you build competence, the fog of fear begins to lift. Knowledge truly is power, and more importantly, it's confidence. I've seen this time and again in my own life. Early in my career, I feared sales. Cold calls made my heart race. Rejection felt personal, but I made a decision. I wasn't going to let fear hold me back, so I studied everything I could about sales. I listened to tapes, read books, attended seminars, and watched those who were succeeding. The more I learned, the more confident I became. Eventually, the very thing I feared became one of the key skills that shaped my success. That's the power of education. It doesn't just fill your mind, it strengthens your spirit. When you learn, you grow. And when you grow, fear loses its grip. Another powerful strategy is to learn from others. One of the smartest things you can do is find someone who has already faced the fear you're struggling with and learn from them. Whether it's public speaking, starting a business, making a life transition, there's someone out there who's done it. And when you hear their story, when you see how they succeeded, it gives you a roadmap. It reminds you that what's possible for one person is possible for you. Mentorship, even in the form of a book or a video, accelerates your growth, and compresses years of experience into days of learning. Now let's talk about adaptability. The world is changing faster than ever, and fear often comes from resisting that change. But here's the truth. Flexibility is the new strength. The people who succeed, who overcome fear and thrive, are the ones who embrace change. They don't fight it. They get curious. They ask, what can I learn here? How can this help me grow? The more you approach new experiences with an open mind and a learning attitude, the less threatening they become. Fear doesn't disappear overnight, but with consistent learning, with a willingness to grow, and with the humility to be a student of life, fear becomes manageable, even motivating. Never stop learning, because every time you acquire a new skill, every time you absorb new knowledge, you're not just changing your mind, you're transforming your future. You're proving to yourself that you're not limited by your past, but empowered by your potential. Mental resilience is one of the most powerful tools you can develop in your journey to eliminate fear and reach your full potential. It's your ability to bounce back from setbacks, to stay calm under pressure, and to keep going even when things get tough. And the good news is, resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build step by step through consistent practice and deliberate focus. One of the simplest yet most effective ways to build mental resilience is through positive affirmations and visualization. Every morning, take a few minutes to repeat empowering statements that align with the life you want to live. Say to yourself, I am confident, I take bold action, or I face challenges with courage. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. When you repeat positive affirmations consistently, you rewire your self-image. You start to believe in your ability to overcome fear. Visualization is equally powerful. I've used it throughout my career. Close your eyes and picture yourself succeeding. See yourself walking confidently into that meeting, delivering a powerful speech, making that difficult decision. Feel the emotions, the pride, the strength, the relief. When you visualize success repeatedly, you mentally rehearse a winning outcome. And that mental rehearsal prepares your mind and body to perform with confidence in real life. Now let's talk about managing stress, because fear and anxiety are often intensified by unmanaged tension in the body. Mindfulness practices like meditation and deep breathing help bring you back to the present moment. They quiet the noise of what might go wrong and refocus your energy on what you can control. Even 5 minutes of focused breathing each day can make a tremendous difference in how you respond to fear. You'll find yourself more centered, more composed, and more in control of your reactions. And here's something many people overlook. Resilience isn't built alone. The people you surround yourself with have a direct impact on your mindset. You need a support network. Spend time with those who uplift you, who believe in you, who push you to be your best. Limit your exposure to negative voices, especially those who reinforce your fears. Instead, seek out mentors, coaches, friends, and peers who are also on a path of growth. When you're supported by positive energy, it becomes much easier to bounce back from challenges and stay focused on your goals. You see, mental resilience doesn't mean you'll never feel fear. It means you'll keep moving forward, even when fear is present. It's about choosing courage again and again until courage becomes your new normal. And that's something every one of us can develop, starting today. One of the most important things I've learned in more than 5 decades of studying success is this: the antidote to fear is action. More specifically, decisive action. When you're facing fear, whether it's fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown, the single best thing you can do is make a clear decision and move forward. Indecision is the breeding ground of anxiety. But once you decide, once you commit, your energy shifts. You stop spinning in uncertainty and you start building momentum. When I was just starting out, I was working a job that paid the bills, but it didn't fulfill me. I had this growing desire to create something bigger, to become a speaker and help others achieve their goals, but fear held me back. What if it doesn't work? What if I'm not good enough? Those were the questions swirling in my head. But then I realized, waiting for fear to disappear before acting is like waiting for the wind to stop before you set sail. The wind doesn't stop, you just learn to sail with it. So I made a decision. I would take the leap. I committed to my path, and that one decision changed the course of my life. You see, when you make a firm decision, you close the door to distraction and hesitation. You tell your mind, this is the direction we're going. And suddenly, you start seeing opportunities that weren't visible before. That's the power of decision making. It cuts through fear like a knife and gives your life direction and clarity. Now let's talk about failure, because that's often what we fear most. But I'll tell you something that might surprise you. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's a part of success. Every successful person I've ever known has failed, and usually more than once. Thomas Edison failed over 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. What made him different was his perspective. He didn't see those failures as proof he couldn't succeed. He saw them as learning experiences. Every failure teaches you something. It sharpens your strategy, toughens your spirit, and brings you one step closer to your goal. But to keep moving forward, you need to stay accountable and committed. It's easy to make a decision in a moment of inspiration. It's harder to stick to it when challenges arise. That's why you must create systems of accountability. Tell someone about your decision, hire a coach, join a mastermind group, track your progress, and most importantly, recommit to your goal every single day. I've seen ordinary people do extraordinary things simply because they took action, even when they were afraid. And you can too. Remember, courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means acting in spite of it. So whatever it is you've been putting off, whatever decision you've been avoiding, make it today. Take the leap. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be committed. That one choice can change everything. Sustaining a fearless mindset is not something you do once and forget. It's a practice, a habit, a way of thinking that must be nurtured every day. One of the most effective ways to maintain that mindset is through regular self-assessment. I've made it a habit to sit down once a week, even just for 15 minutes, to reflect. I ask myself, where did fear hold me back this week? And more importantly, where did I take bold action despite it? This simple exercise helps you stay aware. It keeps you honest with yourself. Fear has a way of creeping in unnoticed unless you intentionally shine a light on it, but awareness alone isn't enough. To stay fearless, you must always have a compelling reason to stretch yourself, and that's where continuous goal setting comes in. Set goals that excite you, that challenge you, that make you a little uncomfortable. Because when you're reaching for something greater, you don't have time to entertain fear. Your focus shifts from, what if I fail, to, what's the next step I need to take? And here's something I've observed in high achievers all over the world. The people who grow the most are the ones who are always working towards something meaningful. They set goals, they reach them, and then they set new ones. Growth is their lifestyle, and it can be yours too. Of course, even the most disciplined minds face setbacks. Life will test you. That's why maintaining optimism is crucial. And optimism is not just positive thinking. It's a deliberate choice to focus on solutions rather than problems. One strategy I've used for years is called positive framing. When something goes wrong, I ask, what can I learn from this? Or how can this make me stronger? That one shift in thinking can transform how you experience adversity. Add to that the habit of daily gratitude, writing down 3 things you're grateful for every morning, and you begin to train your brain to see opportunity everywhere. Let me remind you, a fearless mindset isn't about being fearless all the time. It's about choosing courage again and again. It's about bouncing back faster, standing taller after each fall, and refusing to let setbacks define your future. When you commit to regular self-assessment, when you stay focused on exciting goals, and when you choose to see life through an optimistic lens, you build resilience that no fear can break. That's how you sustain a fearless mindset. And that's how you create a life of continual progress, impact, and fulfillment. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to remind you of the most important truths we've explored today. Fear is a natural part of life. It visits everyone. But it's not the presence of fear that determines your future. It's how you respond to it. We've talked about the dual nature of fear, how it can be both protective and paralyzing. We've identified its roots in ignorance, conditioning, and limiting beliefs. We've explored the toll fear can take on your health, relationships, and success when left unchecked. More importantly, we've uncovered the powerful strategies you can use to transform that fear into fuel. You've learned how to reframe fear as a signal for growth. You've been equipped with tools like visualization, positive affirmations, goal setting, learning, and consistent action to weaken fear's grip and strengthen your confidence. We've talked about the power of decision, the importance of building mental resilience, and the necessity of taking courageous steps even when fear tries to whisper otherwise. Let me say this again. Fear does not need to control you. It is not your master. It can become your motivator, your teacher, your guide. If you choose to confront it, understand it, and rise above it, the decision is yours. So here's your call to action. Pick one fear, just one, that's been holding you back. Write it down, acknowledge it, and then take one small, courageous step today to move through it. Maybe it's making a phone call, applying for that opportunity, speaking up, or simply declaring that you're no longer available for a life of hesitation. Remember, the best way to predict your future is to create it. Boldly, intentionally, and without being ruled by fear. This is your time. Seize it with courage.